Men who got cheated on. What were early signs you only noticed in hindsight? She got super involved in her coworker's struggling marriage. We were friends with them, so I thought nothing of it. She was upfront with me that she was regularly having lunch with her coworker. It's honestly rather impressive looking back because she's a terrible liar. She told me the truth. It was just a heavily massaged version of the truth. I vastly underestimated her ability to manipulate the truth to lie. She was having lunch regularly with her coworker. She was helping him with his struggling marriage, in the sense that she was helping the marriage struggle by them talking of leaving their respective partners and running off together. I had such absolute confidence in our relationship that I didn't think twice about it. Hell, our intimate life was incredible from start to finish. We got back from a trip and she basically told me she changed her mind and wanted to break up, completely blindsided me. I moved out at the end of the month but couldn't let it go. I eventually caught them and immediately reached out to his wife to let her know. Zero regrets about blowing their crap up. The now ex-wife is now my best friend in the world, so I guess it was a net positive. Edit, since this has blew up, I will add some more tea. My friend and I were both equally blindsided by all of this, and as such were relentless in trying to figure out what happened. The husband was a classic love bomber, coming in hot and heavy, then eventually loses interest over time. We did a significant amount of detective work, shared notes, and eventually figured out that her husband took their first date and recreated it with my GF as their secret first date, like, to a hilarious extent. That gave us both a small amount of comfort, knowing how full of crap he is. Zero creativity, just copy-paste. By the time the dust settled, we had probably 80–90% of the full picture just from our own detective work and comparing notes. Playing detective was a satisfying distraction from the pain. I also did not mention my girlfriend's toddler son. He was 18 months old when we started dating. I grew extremely close with him and took him in as my own. My family did as well. After my ex-girlfriend found out that I busted them, she barred me from having any contact with him. That part took years of therapy to get over, since I was effectively losing a son. Story 2. In hindsight, so many. It started with fights. After the fights, there was zero connection anymore. She stopped trying to connect, no matter how hard I tried. After that, she started talking a lot on Instagram. According to her, all gay colleagues, majority were. One wasn't. She stopped caring. No birthday gifts, no special hugs. Doing it felt like a task. I lost all appetite for it. She started to fight out of nowhere, just to make me a bad person to her. She had to make me a bad person so she could feel good about her own bad choices. She started to talk about things she never cared about. Like somehow she got a new personality. I noticed that she posted a lot of updates, but where it was once from us, last year I was on 0 of the updates. I just didn't exist. She lied about everything and didn't care about what it did to us. When we tried to go to a couples therapist, she blamed me for all she did. There was no honesty in it. Lie after lie. Truly lies, not opinions. Later I found out that an hour later she was in a motel with him. According to her, because she was so angry that the therapy didn't help. She let me wait in places for sometimes an hour. Just me standing at these places waiting to be picked up, and she would show up an hour later saying I had to do this or that. Priority number lower than garbage. She never made any plans for us together. It was all her and her friends' parties. So many parties. And then the smell of alcohol. She knew I hated it, so she would drive drunk and do other things to irritate me. First, you think it's just in your mind. Then you see a pattern, but you don't want to believe it. Then you know she does it, but you try to make excuses for her. Till you can't anymore, and then it's all over. In her case, I believe she is an extremely cowardly and immoral person with a fair amount of evil inside her. I hope she rots in hell. Story 3. There were none. 10 years of marriage. She cried watching Hope Floats and said, how could someone does that? Building a life, 2 kids, 3 houses, getting physical daily, church every Sunday. Then one day she left, said she never loved me, never would. She took the kids and went to our lake house, said it was me. Nobody else was involved. Later, selling off assets, I was told she had had a boyfriend since we got married, was leaving me for her current one. I kept waiting for Jerry Springer to come out and reveal more. Asked her for the truth at the end of it. Why? She was truthful and said she thought I would provide a good life, but she wanted to be the girl that turned guys' heads when she walked into a bar. Did not want to divorce me, wanted an open marriage. Nobody in our universe saw anything that would raise a red flag. Story 4. Towards the end, she would tease the idea of me dating other women. She even went as far as trying to set me up with one like we weren't dating. It was really strange and awkward. After the attempted setup, she openly asked if I was interested in her friend, and explained that she was interested in me. When I tried to talk about it, she was very dismissive of my questions and feelings. I ended up not seeing her for a few days after that, and at first she wouldn't even answer her phone. She told me she and her mom went out of town. She'll call me later. That friend she tried to set me up with came to my house to see if I was okay, saying that since my girlfriend was with a guy she met online, I should check on myself. I didn't believe it. More of her friends and even her sister reached out, and without giving me too much information, they checked on me. When I saw her next, we were at a mutual friend's birthday party, and she brought the dude. Even though I had heard from her friends, it wasn't real until I saw them together. It was humiliating and easily one of the worst feelings I've ever experienced. I just left. Over the next few months, I hooked up with as many of her friends as I could. It's what she would have wanted after all. It didn't really help. I never talked to her again. They got married and moved out of state. Sometimes her friends reach out when she is in town and ask if I want to meet up. Hell no. Story 5. I got out of work early and went to surprise her at her job. It was a coffee shop, so nothing was wild. We were going through a few things, but I was trying to work on it even though she was distant. As soon as I walked in, both she and her coworker looked at me with dread. I didn't know why, but I knew it was over at that moment. A few months later, I met my wife, and we have been happily together for 13 years, so sometimes there's a plus. It still feels like a gift today, always. Story 6. She accused me of cheating. Randomly, no evidence, no rationale. I was absolutely perplexed. The lesson learned was, if your partner ever accuses you of the chances of them actually doing the cheating skyrocket. I wish I knew that I would have dumped her on the spot. Unfortunately, I rationalized that she had trust issues from previous relationships and accepted that I had to help her heal. Story 7. At her work, she had two main people that were the secretaries. This one guy that she became friends with was one of them. I called her work looking for her. The one that was not her friend said she left hours ago. She told me she was working later. When she got home, she said she was at work. I told her I called her work, and they said she left hours ago. She called the person an idiot, and that was not true. We broke up and they were banging immediately. Nothing was ever admitted. I could be wrong, but there were too many boxes checked. Story 8. She was very warm and available, but I had a gut feeling that something was not right. My body felt different around her, as if I could not fully relax. She began to grow increasingly distant, giving me vague statements and excuses about being tired or having too much work. Then she accused me of having many girls on my phone. That was total nonsense because I am very loyal and would never do that. Later, I confessed that when she acts that way, I worry she might be cheating. This fear came from her casually mentioning an ex whom she cheated on a long time ago because he treated her poorly. She responded by saying that there needs to be trust between us or there is no point in being together. Afterward, she turned off her online status on WhatsApp, claiming she did not want to be online all the time. She eventually broke up with me via text. I later found out that exactly when I developed that gut feeling, she had met someone else. She started dating him while still in a relationship with me, essentially keeping me as a backup option. Later on, I found out that she got engaged to this new guy 3 months after she ended things with me. She completely erased me from social media. Even in one of her posts summarizing the last year, she said that she finally found the one. However, only in March 2025 she introduced me to her family, told me I was the one, and there were talks of us getting married. It sucks, but I definitely dodged a bullet. It did hurt like hell because she looked unaffected, and it was a pure discard. We are in no contact now. Story 9. The moment I put my name on the lease for our first apartment together was the moment the intimacy went away. Then she wanted the main room to herself while I slept upstairs on the living room pull-out bed. After that, she started hanging out regularly at night with a new guy who had just moved here. She told me she was visiting her aunt in Oklahoma one weekend, but I later found out through another friend that she had actually gone to New York City with the new guy for his sister's wedding. They stayed in the same hotel room, but slept on opposite sides of the bed. Edit. The lease started in March. In early September, I found out about the trip to New York City, and I moved out before October since I had already paid September rent. Story 10. As a man in my mid-40s who unfortunately had 2 personal experiences and saw for myself what happened to close friends and family, the sure sign is when they out of nowhere start projecting on you. You get accusations of suspected flirting with women, they start going through your phones and socials, etc., etc. Off the top of my head, they will also start to pick fights with you. Things you did in the past suddenly become unbearable and unacceptable when you do the same things now. Projection is a common unconscious defense mechanism rooted in psychoanalytic theory where individuals attribute their own unacceptable thoughts, emotions, or impulses onto someone else to protect the ego from anxiety and guilt. Story 11. They just stop acting like they love you. They start to avoid things like touching, kissing, then they blame you for it. Finally, once they feel secure, they will break your heart and move on. Do not start dating someone who is freshly out of a relationship. Those people cannot handle being alone and will absolutely cheat. They likely did it with you. Story 12. If you read through the answers here, you will see one common thread, a drastic change in her habits. My live-in girlfriend went away on a business trip and came back totally cold toward me. She was constantly typing on her phone, which had not been the case before. We used to regularly hold hands when we were out walking, but all of a sudden, she started keeping her hands in her pockets all the time, hiding her phone when she used to just leave it lying around, going out to her car to have work-related phone calls, which she used to do in the house. Turns out she had met a guy on the business trip and started up a long-distance relationship with him. It ended a 13-year relationship, and he dumped her within a few weeks. Story 13. Literally did not listen to the warning signs. Her roommate's boyfriend told me that she was not happy but did not want to break up. Not her boyfriend told me. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said it was. When I found out with another guy about 4 months later, the same roommate's boyfriend let me know that he had set her up with his friend. Like, this guy gave me a roadmap and I did not see or listen. He was a jerk otherwise, but I should have listened. Story 14. She was insistent on opening up our relationship, even though I never once brought this up or desired it in any way. Just out of the blue one night over drinks. I wrote it off the first time, but then she brought it up multiple times over the following weeks. Eventually, she ended up cheating on me with a guy down the street. She knew all along what the end goal was, and was just trying to make it feel like it was partly my idea. It was not. Worst experience of my life. I lost my best friend and partner to her lust and insecurity. Story 15. My ex during college traveled a couple of hours away with her girlfriend to a soccer game one weekend. She left Friday morning, and when I went to her dorm, her roommate, confused, said, "What do you mean? She is away for the weekend." Immediate red flag. I texted her and she said, "Haha, sorry, forgot to tell you, I'll be back Sunday." Sunday arrives, I go to her dorm and ask how her weekend was. She gives me short answers, avoids eye contact, and offers only a half-hearted hug. We were very intimately compatible, so when I tried to initiate and she turned me down, I was confused. She also told me not to look at her while she changed. Everything felt off. She was not the same after the trip, barely gave me the time of day. It really messed me up at the time. Edit, I forgot the most important part. She hooked up with one of the soccer players and had been talking to him for a couple of weeks prior. Story 16. She gets angry a lot without really any reasons. She becomes cold and distant, does not want to see me, lots of excuses. I know privacy, but before she would happily allow me to open her messenger. But then suddenly 2 years ago she got angry and changed her password really quick. Keep said a lot of reasons to stop and we should break up, even though I know deep in my heart I have been doing my best, and her reasons are unacceptable too. Like I cannot provide for her, or she always accused me of only using her for banging, or she would always use her religion and insist we are not compatible. Lots of reasons. Also, I am always the one who cries most of the time whenever we have had a major misunderstanding. I only remember once she cried for me during our early days when she still genuinely loved me, until she could not find any reasons and just ghosted me. After 4 months, she had a new boyfriend. We broke up with no closure. You know what is worse? She used her best friend to break up with me. After she ghosted me, I was just thinking she was asking for space. But then her best friend messaged me and said we are breaking up. She, her friends, her siblings, her family, and relatives all ghosted me. I felt betrayed, as if I was the one who was at fault. She broke up with me to avoid cheating, even though a month before we broke up, I had suspicion and already noticed the red flags I mentioned above. Devastated, I still have not fully moved on. But I am better today, unlike 2 years ago. I was the happiest at the peak of our relationship. I loved her so much. My feelings never changed during those 5 years. But the pain she inflicted on me lingers to this day. I still feel bitter, especially seeing couples where we used to hang out. I remember every little detail of our memories. It sucks. Story 17. She withdrew. I did not want to talk as much, always on her phone, and whenever I tried to talk to her to see what I could do to be different, she would start a fight. I tried everything, and ultimately, she just treated me badly. I broke up with her because I assumed something was going on. A month or so after, one of our friends gave me the details of a guy she had been seeing for 3 months. I was right, and I tried to dismiss the signs at first because I thought that I was not a good enough partner. I gave it my all, but I can look back now and see that she had given up long before. Story 18. Gaslit the crap out of me. I would just be completely normal, and she would make it a point that I was doing something wrong, constantly telling me that I was cheating when in fact I was doing the furthest thing from that. What really messed me up was not the fact she cheated, it was the fact that she cheated on me when I was grieving over the death of my grandma. My grandma raised me and was the maternal figure of my life, and juggling the sadness of her passing with the low blow of getting cheated on really did a number on me. It took me a few years to become okay again. I am in a significantly better place in my life now. Silver lining is that due to that experience, I dedicated my time to getting into finance and it completely changed my life for the better. Story 19. Did not notice anything. Did not find out until she had already left me, and I tried to rekindle things. She admitted she cheated on me about 6 months before she ended things. In retrospect, Maybe I should have clued in. She kept telling me she was unhappy in the relationship, and I never implemented the things she said she needed from me. But it hit me like a ton of bricks when she told me she had cheated on me. Story 20. She went to the garage to talk on her cell phone. She got drunk and sang Torn Between Two Lovers at karaoke. She went on a day-long trip with a bunch of high school friends and one dude who definitely did not go to her high school. I assumed he was a boyfriend to one of the girls. I was right, but I never imagined that his girl was also my girl. I was oblivious until a mutual Facebook friend ratted her out. Story 21. She started being shady on her phone, turning it away from me, taking it wherever she went, phone face down when not in use. She got in great shape and started hanging out with her sister and brother-in-law more, who has a friend she has had a crush on for many years. They all started going out, and all that while I stayed at home with our pets. Finally went on her phone when she was in a different room and found the evidence. Gentlemen, it is always the phone. If she is shady with her phone or will not let you see what she is doing, do not let those signs get away from you. Story 22. This bar my girlfriend and I used to go to has karaoke on Tuesdays. One day, some guy came up to her and asked if she wanted to join his band. On our anniversary weekend, she kind of blew me off and went to band practice instead. After a while, it was them sending memes to each other, her making him a Spotify playlist, and her not acting taken when he asked her to hang out, something like, "Sure, I will just let my boyfriend know where I will be." I still trusted her to the very end. When she broke up with me, I asked her if she was leaving me for someone else and she said no. Then she blocked me. The other guy blocked me too. Lao. On their anniversary post, she included photos of them together when we were still dating. Story 23. Staying up later on game voice chats and prioritizing it instead of shared time. Then going on weekly trips to meet up with said people to do game with them and being told not to interrupt by calling or asking about it. The big one was coming home to her, gone with a Dear John letter, and finding out that she was staying with said game people, namely one who she got along really well with and that I was not allowed to ask about. I was willfully ignorant to it because I trusted her fully with no question or doubt and was so afraid of doing or saying anything that would cause her to leave me. Story 24. She used to be extremely clingy, wanted me to spend literally every waking moment of my life with her, either in person or constantly texting. Then she would always be too busy with school, work, friends, or whatever, despite being a very lazy person, constantly talking behind her friends' backs, and never having any ambition in life. Turns out her only ambition in life was being a parasite. Story 25. I was oblivious but found out when she told me she had kissed a girl before, followed up with I am in an on and off relationship with a girl. I give her a lot of credit because she came out to me and told me to my face, but finding out I was a side piece in a lesbian relationship was kind of a kick to the soul at the time. I just want to quickly say, I do not hate personal lifestyle or relationship choices of that nature. Story 26. My not cheated on, that I know of, but after 22 years with my wife, she stopped sleeping, eating, and was staying at a neighbor's all night, stealing from me, lying, acting like a demon. She was on meth. I left her. She never even showed up to divorce court. I finished raising our 3 kids alone. I will never trust people the same way again. One thought I always have is who she was. I feel like I should clarify that no drugs were used prior by us. Only light social drinking. Drugs were not a part of our relationship, friends, or family. I was blindsided by it. Story 27. To all those reporting that their partner flipped on a dime from being affectionate and easygoing to suddenly everything being an argument and actions that were once enjoyed suddenly becoming annoying, you are describing narcissistic discard. Your partner was a narcissist. You were their supply. What changed was they discovered a new supply, and so they began the process of discarding you. There was nothing you could have done to stop it. Your relationship was always going to end this way. Narcissists are incapable of being happy. Put the past behind you and be grateful you got out. Story 28. She checked out of the relationship about 6 months before it ended. Suddenly I stopped putting in effort, keeping me from looking at her phone. She said it was because she had photos of the wedding dress on it and did not want me to see it before the wedding. She broke things off 2 days after we sent out invitations to the wedding. 6 months later, she was engaged to our mechanic. Story 29. Absolutely nothing. Thought we were good? She told me she was happy. She went out with her friends and got it on with some dude in the club. Thankfully, one of her pals let me know, but she admitted it the following morning. She said it was just a drunken mistake, but I knew I would never feel comfortable again when she went out and the trust was gone. It sucks because I was totally into her. I think I would have married her if she had not done that. Story 30. I was a bartender, and she would always come in, but a couple of nights she and her friend just hung out outside with the bouncer all night. She said her friend was into him, so whatever, go be a good friend. Turns out it was not her friend that was into him. She randomly broke up with me and was dating him within a week and somehow still had the audacity to show up to my sister's wedding because my sister did not do +1s. She sent individual invitations. Good ride. Story 31. This was during the 6th year of the relationship. I was dropping her back to her place after dinner. We were not married, and I come from a country where living together was not looked favorably upon. I leaned in for a kiss, and she pushed me back. I was absolutely taken aback, and she said, "I am not feeling very fresh." A couple of weeks later, it was all over. Story 32. Her personality just changed. Though leading up to it, all the signs were there. I just accepted growing up that my mom, a good mom but a horrible adult, never had a relationship I could learn what love should be, so I just remained faithful. But like I said, her personality changed, stories changed. She moved in with me early on as her mom was a party girl and a drunk, so would take her money and bring random men home all the time. That changed. She now described her mom as a hard-working woman that did what needed to be done. Guess she does not tell the stories that she used to beat her and threw her down a flight of stairs. Things like I pushed her to go for the career she wanted. Early on, she would tell everyone I pushed her, and she was so blessed. 6 months before it ended, the story was our kids were what pushed her. But she had already been in the new career before the first. Lots more stuff, but I am an idiot. Girls' nights would last till 6 in the morning the next day. I would get a random text at 3 in the morning telling me how much she loved me. Random girls' nights during the week that lasted a few hours. Sorry ladies, there is no way you get together for a few drinks, and it does not run late. Same with us guys too. I confronted her about that, and she gaslit me. At this point, we have 3 kids and our iCloud is set up as a family, so whether or not you share your location, you can see it by default in Find My. She gaslit me about the short girls' nights, but her actual location was different from where she said she was. When we split, friends abandoned me. My mother told me that she would come over there telling her that I did not do anything with the kids. This, that, and the other thing. But the thing is, I have 3 small daughters, and they are all daddy's girls. Not to boost my ego, but if we are at a function where it is like a celebration, they run to me first and are usually on me the entire day. I think she used to really sever the relationship by saying I was being controlling, which, to say, is I asked her to stop spending all the money we had and then some, racking up credit bills. When we split, we had absolutely no money. 3 years later, I have about 35 grand in the account. I take care of my girls. We go to places, I buy them what they need and clothes. I just hope, because I have to move out west since it is too expensive to buy a house here. But I hope when I do buy the house, my daughters follow me. This is one of the hardest decisions I have to make, but I have moved on. I have re-established a relationship with a woman I met when we took a break. I always wondered what would have happened if I stuck it out with her, and now I wish I had. 3 years with her now. Everything is still like I am living in a romantic comedy. Story 33. Maybe this was me being blind and believing in the best of people, but one night, my ex and I got into an argument, a pretty heated one at that. Then, she just left. I thought she went for a walk at first. She did not have a license. A bit of time passes, I call her to check on her. No answer. 2 hours passed, no answer. I started calling everyone. Her family says she is not with them. I hate saying this, but she also did not have many friends, except for some that I introduced her to. So I called them. A big point here is that everyone said no, she is not with them, including a specific friend I will call John. John denied being with her. So when I finally hear back from her, it is at midnight. She says she is with John at Dave & Buster's to cool off and will be back when she gets back. She comes back at 3 or 4 in the morning. Obviously, I had some alcohol. A week later, my ex discussed going into an open relationship. John also really did not talk much about that night. I just did not push it. I wanted to focus more on fixing things between me and my ex than finding more issues. Well, she left a little bit over a month after, so I proceed to just move on from it. 2 years later, my ex messaged me out of the blue and was like, I cheated on you with John. Here is the proof. Peace. Story 34. She stayed out all night and claimed she fell asleep on her girlfriend's couch. When she came home, she went into the garage and took all her clothes off, including her underwear, and started the washing machine. She went back to bed. An hour later, a dude pulled up in a big truck and knocked on the front door. When I answered, he handed me my wife's wallet and said she had left it at his house. When I confronted her, she gaslit me and made me be the bad guy and told me this was her girlfriend's roommate. Story 35. 180-degree change in likes or dislikes. Ex is from NYC. Hated the outdoors. Came back from deployment to her being into photography and anything and everything outdoors related. I understand people can grow and change their interests, so I took it as that. Turns out she was using that as an excuse to be gone all day or weekends. Story 36. For me, it was a classic case of her suddenly having to work late 2 or 3 nights a week and she told me the place where they worked in the evenings was in a basement, so she had no phone signal, so was uncontactable during that time. She also became increasingly protective over her phone, and would always keep it on her and never leave it lying around, and always made sure to turn its screen down so I would not see if she got a message. It all started making me quite suspicious, and something definitely felt off in the vibe of our relationship. I found out several months later she was having an affair with a colleague, and they were going to a hotel after work. I found out by the one time she left her phone in the bedroom when she was in the shower. He messaged when it was in plain view of me on the bedside table. I made the horrible mistake of opening it and reading the thread. Story 37, story time. When I first met her, she had a boyfriend. I found her attractive but refused to be the other guy, and when she expressed interest, I told her as much. She tells me months later they broke up. Proceed to a month of messing around only to find out from a mutual friend she never actually left the boyfriend. Dropped her cold right there. Someone must have tipped off the boyfriend too, because apparently not too long after they actually did break up, and she got kicked out of their place. Now here is where I messed up. After roughly a year and some change after those events, I ran into her again. That whole time I did not have any contact with her, but she seemed to have spent that time actually being single and somewhat getting her life together. Despite my better judgment, I was lonely and she was still very attractive. We messed around again until we made it official. It did not even last a week. She asked if she could come over that night after she finished work. 2 hours passed when she said she would get off. I messaged her, no reply. Something in my gut fell off, so I went to her job. Her car was still there, and almost picture-perfect timing, she is walking out giggling with some guy she works with. She does not notice me and gets in the car with him. I drove past her place and his car is parked in front of her place, still no replies to any calls or texts. I drive by the next morning, car is still there. Moral of the story, how you get them is how you lose them. Lesson learned. Story 38, all of them had the every accusation is an admission of guilt thing happening. Always accusing me of infidelity over the slightest thing and taking any female contact as proof I was being unfaithful. Everything you do is annoying and cause for an argument. Secretive conversations with male friends and the gaslighting afterwards. You are so possessive. You are paranoid. You are squashing my soul. You are so chauvinistic and old-fashioned. More attention to makeup, etc. Story 39. First girl had exclusively male friends and actively discouraged me from having female friends. That was the only sign, and it turns out she was sleeping with 2 of my friends behind me. Second girl would talk about this male friend of hers from back home that she would sometimes see when she went to visit her sick and eventually dying grandmother. I found the letters he had sent her right before she left me for him. But she cheated on me with him, then when she got with him, cheated back with me and multiple other men. That is not even the worst thing about her, and things were not good. Last girl would be on her phone all the time but could not text or call me back. Had multiple men she was friends with and would comment on the things she found super attractive about them. Things finally ended when I raised a backbone and told her something she did was unacceptable. She had been with at least 10 other men in our 2 years, one of whom had been my best friend and had been the one I had confided in that I was pretty sure she was cheating. Story 40. Small inconsistencies like little lies or stories that did not line up. Also, sudden secretive habits like they started locking their phone, changing passwords, or just browsing somewhere you never see. At the moment, you ignore them, but later you realize you were mentally noting them all along. Story 41. My ex-fiancé became a drug addict and also started cheating during that time, so I noticed behavior changes, but that was probably related to the drugs. The thing that got me to consider that she may be cheating was that I overheard her on the phone talking to her boss about an ongoing family emergency that had caused her to miss several days of work, even though I was not aware of any emergency, and I was under the impression that she had been going to work. I also happened to check the trips on our Uber account and saw several rides to a nearby apartment building. It seemed that quite often she would leave for work, making it look like she was taking public transit there, but she was actually taking Uber to some dude's place. Story 42. She became distant, on her phone constantly, less communicative about what was going on in her life. She also was hanging out with work friends, men and women, at their homes, and did not want me to meet them or come with her, despite those work friends having their significant others allegedly present. Red flag. She stopped being intimate, no interest in my body or needs. It was a big red flag when she was still taking care of herself without wanting me to be involved ever. The breakup wrecked me for months. Years later, and I think with enough hindsight, I realized it was for the best. I separated from someone who had so little respect for me that she lied to my face over and over, and I am nearly 100% sure she was actively cheating on me. She treated me very badly, and without remorse or recognition. It is not worth trying to make it work with someone who does not respect you as a person or a partner. Do not get stuck in that kind of situation. Life is too short. I have almost let the hate go too. It is hard to let that feeling go when it feels like someone who was so close to you, someone you had such love and care for, treats you like such an ignorant fool. It is a betrayal, and it feels so incredibly embarrassing and utterly humiliating. I may not have been a perfect partner, but I deserved so much better. She did not deserve me. Now I am married to someone whom I love, trust, and who treats me how I deserve to be treated. Take care and be loved all. Story 43. My ex would bring up guys that reached out to her on Instagram. We would mostly laugh at their attempts and she would block them on the spot. Until one in particular, someone that she had a former relationship with, always reached out, but anytime I mentioned blocking him, she always said she would, and then he would eventually come back up in conversation. Eventually, this escalated to him sending her a dong picture. After she said she blocked him, I did not believe her and found that she did not actually block him and in fact had been edging him for months using our intimate moments to get him riled up. There was one message she had not sent yet, and it read, "Damn it, I should not have told him about us." She still denies this ever happened. We were together for 4 years, talking about marriage and kids. Story 44. As part of my recovery from the pain of getting out of my marriage after discovering her affair, I have been moving photos of her or us to the hidden folder on my phone. I did not want to just delete them because they do represent memories, I just did not want to see them anymore. What I noticed was the type of selfies she would post or send to me when the affair had started. They literally looked like dating profile photos and not the type of carefree, candid pics you would see from a 10-year relationship. I chalked it up at the time as her being playful and proud of her recent weight loss. Nope, she was literally sending me pics intended for someone else. Story 45. Cheating in non-physical ways. Doing all the things with her friends you want to do together and leaving you out. Mentions all her male friends or coworker, except leaves out all details about one in particular. Obvious gaslighting when you know one of her male friends disrespected you 4 times. Way more insecure but has to project it onto me. I miss being married, but holy hell, I do not miss her. Story 46. Got a job that was the opposite schedule of mine. Closing shift. Would not come home at night because she wanted to get drinks with coworkers after work. I am going to crash at Ashley's on the couch. I have had too much to drink. When she came home at night, she would sneak into bed around 5 a.m. and pretend she had been there all night. A couple of times she came home, and I was up early, and she was just sitting in the car on her phone for over an hour. Started sleeping in the spare room because she could not sleep and did not want to wake me up watching Netflix. Became protective of her phone. Did not want to change in front of me anymore. Story 47. We were newlyweds, brand new homeowners, scraping by to refurbish a century home, and I got a PlayStation 4 for Christmas. Then came the anonymous call from a coworker while I was at coffee with her mom. He told me everything. Side note, while at work one day, she, her new boyfriend, and some of his friends came and took almost all the furniture and belongings from my home. They even took all my liquor, all for the best. I have an amazing wife now and we have an amazing 9-year-old daughter together. They are the lights of my life. Story 48. After our last child, she became less interested in doing things together unless it included a photo op for social media. Eventually, I was edited out of photos or completely left out as the attention grew. She claimed to be bisexual but said, "I will always come home to you," until she did not. I became an afterthought until it was time to buy a home together. And then things changed. I know I got the meal ticket. I was thriving in my career and had started to earn an excellent salary. Late nights out with the girls, girl trips, guy friends. She cheated, and I gave her multiple chances. The worst was when I had her dead to rights with damnable proof and confronted her. First, she denied it, then realized I knew for sure there was no real remorse nor an apology. We separated a few months later, and the divorce was finalized a year later. It was embarrassing, emotionally destructive, and put me in some bad places with booze. I made the decision that even though this hurt, leaving a partner of 16 years was most likely the absolute best thing. I got clean, leaned into the work of remembering who I am and what kind of person I intend to be on a daily basis, and became the best person for myself, my kids, my community. I took a year before I started dating. Because of all these things I met and am with someone now who is a plus to my life as I am to theirs. We have been together for 5 years now, and my life is full. Cheating is a signal and a way for people to have a relationship that is not working for them, even if and especially because it is such a shocking signal. Story 49. She'd visit me at work when I was a bartender and leave with my friends. After I stopped seeing her, some of my friends said they'd slept with her. It was interesting. They'd say things like, "It was only once, and it wasn't planned and never happened again." I weathered pregnancy scares with her. I don't know any of them now. Story 50. One thing I noticed with my ex was that 2 of her best friends happened to become single, and a few weeks later is when she started going out with her friends more for a girls' night out. She stopped asking how my day was or initiating conversation. She started arguing over not having money or not spending money on them. She would come home super late when going out, all this while we were 2 years old. Months later, I had one of her friends telling me what had been going on during these nights out. Story 51. My ex-wife never wanted to be alone with me, always had to have a friend over, or we had to be with her parents all day. Then it turned into always having plans with her friends for things she knew I wouldn't be interested in. At some point, I'm sure those plans involved the dude she was cheating with. Then it was making sure she wasn't sitting with me. If we were on the couch, she was always on the other side. In bed, she was always as far away as possible. Then her phone became glued to her hand, always messaging, using her words, loser, low life. I didn't have to worry. Story 52. My wife of 14 years absolutely loved Europe and was getting her Master of Arts when she had the opportunity to do 2 weeks in Italy and 2 weeks in the Netherlands for class. I had to work the first 2 weeks while she was in Italy, and I met her in Amsterdam. When I got there, she was a completely different person, blaming me for everything from breathing to just being alive. We got back 2 weeks later, and I found her emails to an Italian guy she met and spent the night with. I confronted her, and she flipped out and left me for him. She told me it was okay that she did this all the time. She forgave herself. She's been with him for another 14 years, and they are married, living in Italy. She got everything she wanted, I guess. Story 53. She stayed in touch with her ex, who she accused of assaying her and being an a-hole with her in more ways than one, and was still seeing him for lunch while we were together. She also canceled a date night with me and lied about being with family and wasn't where she was supposed to be. She dumped me over text after I harassed her family, only after I drove over there to ask if she was okay because she canceled our date. Story 54. If you're using hot water and it suddenly turns cold, it means someone else is using the water. This isn't about water. She went from building me up to constantly tearing me down. She would blow up over the smallest things. Even just calling became terrible, when hellos became yeah, or what do you want? Anything I did was met with, did I ask you to do that for me? Late night phone calls from her girlfriend was the guy she renamed to a girl's name to avoid suspicion. Story 55. I saw several, and honestly, I don't remember the exact details due to the time that has passed. She spent a lot more time on her phone and had this giddy/nervous look in her eyes. She stopped sitting on or against me on the couch or love seat. She would dress up in clothes that implied she was single, sheer tops revealing her nice bras or skirts. I didn't know she had. She asked me to wear protection. She never had time to chat on the phone anymore, despite it being a cute tradition where I called her from the side of radio towers or at the base due to my job. I'm not even sure when the last time she kissed me was. She felt looser when we got intimate, even though it was rare. I walked in on her and a friend of mine the next day when I came home early without telling her. I'm still angry and hurt, and she will never apologize or show shame. I should have left her before we had a kid. Now I'm alone and can't trust women. Therapy hasn't been helpful. Story 56. Her phone, after 2.5 years, she suddenly had a PIN number. If we were out, it was always face down or in her bag. At home, always right next to her on the sofa. When she was asleep, under her pillow. Going to the bathroom or for a shower, she took it with her. She stopped connecting Bluetooth in her car, which she always did to call her friends or family. After 2 months of odd phone behavior, it transpired she had been cheating on me with her best friend at work, who was engaged to be married in the next 2 months. I believed we were happy doing it 5 to 6 times a week, spent 4 nights a week together, communicated effectively. She's just a woman who lacks integrity and decency. I went through her phone and got the confirmation I needed. She denied it at first when I casually confronted her, then ultimately admitted it. She simply said they had grown closer and she made a mistake by sleeping with him. Same old lack of accountability BS. It meant nothing. I told his now wife. She forgave him, blamed my ex-girlfriend because she is all about optics, and honestly an incredibly weak woman who has to live in a marriage where her husband cheated in their home. I'm certain he has to walk on eggshells now in a young marriage, so good luck to them. I broke up with her and have been very happily single for 18 months. Story 57. She became weirdly fond of stories involving divorce or breakups. I remember we were watching a Japanese show called Let's Get Divorced, and she was just weirdly rooting for the couple to break up and stay broken up, being super excited when the woman in the show started fooling around with other dudes. I remember being weirded out but wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, so I didn't bring it up at all. Fast forward a few months later, it turned out she was cheating with a bunch of rondos on Tinder. It also turned out that she had an office boyfriend at a company she used to work for while we were together. Story 58. This was back in college. She started hanging out more with male friends and got very defensive. Like, so you don't want me to be happy? I need to be able to hang out with whoever I want. I could ask if she wanted to hang out after school, and she was like, no, I'm watching Friends with Gary after school. Got any problems with that? One day she broke up with me, and the same night she announced on Facebook that she had a new boyfriend. Story 59. She got very protective of her phone and spent all evening in online game chat rooms. She did a lot of visiting friends in the evening. She started really taking care of herself, dressing really nice, hair, makeup, nails, always top-notch, lost weight. She tried to plan a trip out of state to visit her brother for his birthday by herself. She got really pissy when I said, "Oh, that sounds fun, I'll go with you." Yeah, it turns out it wasn't a fun trip at all. Story 60. No, I just say I was relationship colorblind at the time. I moved her in with me temporarily till she got back on her feet. First sign was she would find a way to turn anything into a fight. Then everything else started snowballing in, lack of communication, lack of intimacy, becoming very secretive with her phone, etc. She thought it was going to make me try harder to keep her happy, but it really just made me keep my distance till I could leave. Story 61. Was Hejlabiu, Somray. I tried to no pramik one city one. Probably the random spontaneous hangouts with her childhood friend at the worst possible times. I was excited she had a friend because she was super introverted. Or maybe her being super secretive about her phone. Turns out she was going on little dates with a childhood friend of mine. Funny how life works though. We broke up at the same time as my current girlfriend was going through her breakup. Now we have 3 kids, and I couldn't feel more secure, and wanted to be in a relationship. Story 62. The random, not that it would ever happen, but what would happen if we divorced one day? That girl was definitely flirting with you. I bet if one of us cheated it would be you. Statements were so odd at the time and made me think, what DTF? It all made sense at some point. There were those and the all of a sudden changed lock code on her phone because she didn't want our kids to play on her phone. Then the random guys on Snap that were so-and-so's husband's friend. I was just a blind and trusting idiot. Story 63. I'm a gay female, but in hindsight, the early sign that my partner was cheating on me was that she started to go to work nearly an hour and a half to 2 hours early and came home about 2 hours later than usual. I didn't question it because she was a teacher, but she was already going in much earlier than her start time. Also, I asked her father how his dog was doing after the recent food incident, and he said Coco was fine. They went to get her flea meds, and she loved the treats they gave her. A little while back, my partner called me one day suddenly to claim that her father's dog was really sick and she needed to go be with him. She stayed away for 2 days, narrating a near-death experience for the dog. She had some explanation to do but instead went ballistic, accusing me of cheating on her and moving out 3 days later. A month later, she popped up on Facebook, cuddled up with another chick talking about love, and then a few months later posted the same chick with angel wings, mourning her. Some family in the comments mentioned a sudden heart attack. Story 64. She started spending less time with me, being distant, coming home from work and going straight to the bedroom. All the phone calls with her friend and said friend's new man. Big one was the conversation I overheard her talking about sending explicit pictures, something she never did in the 8 years we were together, but I just brushed it off as she was probably talking about if I ever asked for them. I took her on vacation for our 8-year anniversary, fully paid for by me. I didn't feel good for most of the trip, and finally on one of the last nights I was feeling better, she said she was going to the beach. I was going to tag along because I was finally feeling better, but she said she wanted to go alone to think. Late night phone calls on the balcony pretty much every night. The writing was on the wall. I confronted her a few weeks after the trip, and that's when I confirmed my suspicions. A lot of these signs started popping up a month or 2 before our anniversary trip. I wish I would have trusted my gut from the get-go so I could have taken a friend instead, making the trip actually a good memory. Oh well. Story 65. In order, things I would do that she used to appreciate became annoying to her. She would try to spend less time with me. It felt like she would pick anything to argue about. Dumb things that don't even matter. For example, I drove to the grocery store to get stuff one time. She was home. I saw a donkey and that was peculiar. People have horses in the area. She said I was wrong and didn't know what I saw. Dissatisfied with me asking what was wrong and trying to work on it. The thing that had me fully suspecting her of cheating on me was that I was taking her home from work. And when we went inside, the house smelled like someone else had been there and followed the smell into the bedroom. I didn't want to believe it and put faith in her. I should have trusted my gut. Story 66. Why? The other boyfriend, alleged ex, showed up at her house and demanded I come outside. Not entirely a sign, but her telling me to stay inside while she went to talk to him should have been a more glaring indicator. But you know, 20 and all horned up. Did I not care or not know? Would I have stopped enjoying the scenery just because someone else got to see it too? Probably not back then. Story 67. Every day after work, she would like to talk about her funny, attractive new coworker. At first, I just thought it was innocent, the new guy in the workplace everyone liked. My concerns were called controlling and insecure. Well, I was right. So now I trust my intuition, and if they call it controlling or insecure, they can kick rocks. Story 68. One of her teammates was getting married. I didn't know the teammate super well, but enough that I could reasonably expect to be included as a +1 or not. She told me I hadn't been included. No big deal. I preferred not to have to go. A few months later, we were at the teammate's house for a party. The teammate said, "Sorry we missed you at the wedding." That was weird. I shrugged it off with my teammate, and something kept me from saying anything to my girlfriend. Shortly after that, I moved away for a few months for school. She never called me, except 2 months later she called to break up with me, and then rushed off because there was someone at the door. A few months after that, the dime dropped. Story 69. She started hanging out with a new friend, who was the ex of one of her friends, and they would get together when we weren't together. I never met the guy once. They would just smoke weed and do burnout stuff. She kind of became a different person when they hung out. I wanted to trust her, and believed men and women can be platonic friends, so I didn't bring it up. Cue about a month later, when I had to go away for a weekend for work. By Saturday night she stopped returning texts and wouldn't answer her phone. Sunday afternoon, when I finally saw her in person, I got her, after some pressing, to tell me she cheated on me with him. Story 70. My wife of 10 years was sitting at the bar in our friend's kitchen texting for a weekend away. I was walking behind her and saw green text messages. My gut told me to try and check again. I walked back behind her, grumbling about forgetting something in another room. Then I saw it was her coworker and a bunch of heart emojis. She never used emojis much before. At that moment, I knew she was having at least an emotional affair. I started looking back and realized our house had been out of order for some time. We were both going through hell at work and just didn't have the emotional bandwidth to help each other. We had started drifting apart. The intimacy didn't dry up, but it was performative at best. After that night, I made a concerted effort to step it up and start supporting her and our relationship. I supported her when she had to work late. I forgave the little things and started taking the chores we both hated. She started to really perk up, but I knew something was really bothering her. Then she admitted everything about 3 weeks later. The affair had started emotionally and had just moved to physical. That was her breaking point. She admitted she had lost control and the guilt was ripping her apart. She spent the next few months doing weekly counseling, and it turned out she was carrying some really nasty stuff from her past that I had no idea about. We found a husband and wife team of counselors who specialize in relationship counseling and saw them weekly for another 6 months. We owned our stuff in a safe place and started really communicating. With that new perspective, I can remember a number of times when she was crying out for emotional intimacy before everything came to light. It was little things. "Are you coming to bed at a decent time? Maybe we can watch a movie on Friday after our son goes to bed. Why do you always have to work late?" Our laundry pile was insane, and we had so much junk in the house. These things started small, but as they grew, they were a really good indicator of the distance between us. There wasn't any projection, no threats, and no real change to either of our behavior. After the counseling, the change in our relationship was shocking. It was like we were dating new people, discovering things about each other we never knew after a decade together, and finding new ways to support and care for each other. I never realized I had missed hearing her laugh. It's been 2 years since our house almost fell over. It wasn't easy to rebuild, but I'm really glad we did. Is it perfect? No. Is it ours? Yes, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Story 71. Jesus, where to begin? My second fiancée effectively told me who she was before she did it. She told me about the things she'd done to other men to explain something I'd gone through before, and while illuminating, proceeded to do the exact same things to me. She was an apprentice at a tattoo shop when we met. She would have appointments for a new tattoo that would never materialize. She was sleeping with her boss. She'd made a few inappropriate jokes in front of his wife, and a few tattoo appointments later, where there was no tattoo, she'd got fired. She didn't want people to know we were dating, not on social media, not in public, not in Skype calls in front of mutual friends, and was especially protective of one person's feelings on the matter. If they don't want people to know you're dating, they're either cheating on you, cheating with you, there's an ex or a former intimate partner in the picture that they still have feelings for, or the only other alternative is they are completely ashamed to be with you. Intimacy might be great and you might be a wonderful person who makes them laugh, but there's still something about you that they think others will judge them harshly about, which is going to put pressure on your relationship in the worst way. Honestly, I don't know if that's any better. Either way, run. I didn't want me spending time with or talk to her friends, especially without her. Absolutely no PDA. I don't mean she didn't want to make out with me in public, boo-hoo. I mean absolutely no outward signs of affection. No hugging, no kissing of any kind, no hand-holding, no touching. If we were at the mall together, I would have to follow behind away, but make it look like I wasn't intentionally following her. I wasn't even allowed to say I love you for a long time, was extremely protective of her child. Most parents are, but I wasn't allowed to appear in pictures. She angrily ranted that he was never to call me dad or pops, and he would be severely punished if he ever slipped. I thought it was a weird tangent at the time, but that was related. I had to beg for affection. Things we used to do together. She grew increasingly annoyed until she'd snapped about it. She grew angry at my response to things, even if I was completely submissive. She even hit me. The man who replaced me came to visit for an entire month, after she'd gone to see him for about as long. The engagement ring that I'd bought for her, that she'd worn home during our previous visit, disappeared and was replaced. Then she wound up with all of these expensive gifts, which later turned out to be wedding gifts from his parents. She told me it was some Friends' Day celebration, which doesn't exist in that country. When I spoke with mutual friends, they were uncomfortable around me. We spoke less and less. She'd have lengthy conversations with him, and by the time I got to speak with her, she'd be too tired and would either go to bed without speaking to me or end the conversation after a few minutes, saying she was ready to go to bed. During his visit, they took a 2-week road trip, and one of her friends let it slip in front of me that they'd banged. Then another, and a third hinted that she was pregnant with his child already, which they later confirmed. My birthday was during one of their trips, and she never called, not to wish me a happy birthday, not to say that he'd been thinking about me or that she missed me. She said she wanted to be left alone during the trip, so I respected her wishes. People who aren't cheating on you don't do stuff like this or ask for weeks of radio silence. People would regularly proposition her to bang in front of me, and she wouldn't say anything like "no thanks" or "I'm spoken for." She would often throw inappropriate innuendos or suggestions back. She claimed she was being flirty. When she came to see me once, probably the most obvious sign was when I came home early with ice cream, her favorite kind. She became upset and begged me not to go into my room. She was emotional. The door was closed, and she pushed me away from the door. My clothes hamper was in the closet because I didn't really have space anywhere else, and I wanted to take off my shoes, socks, and overshirt. That's not normal. In general, we spent less time talking to one another because she prioritized this other person over me. This happened even when she was visiting, despite being in my home, eating my food, and smoking my cigarettes. During her last visit, we did one enjoyable thing, but it was still tense. I was forbidden from appearing in any pictures. They were meant exclusively for her and her son. For the rest of the week, she was bitter and irritable. She would tie up my computer, talking to this other man into the wee hours of the morning with headphones on so I couldn't listen in. Their conversations would start at 8 p.m. and wouldn't end until at least 2 or 3 a.m. Unfortunately, her 2-year-old son was wound up and ready to party at 4 a.m. every morning. She'd sleep in until at least 2 p.m., sometimes until 4 p.m. She'd shower, have dinner, watch TV, and then log on to Skype at 7 p.m., where she'd chat with our other friends. She even interrupted intimate time with me once to talk with this other man. We never got done. She just hopped off me, got dressed, and then we never did it again. While she was sleeping away the day, I'd be stuck watching her 2-year-old son on 2 hours of sleep. I'd be bored watching her proposition other people, and then he'd come on, and it would go to hell from there, and the cycle would repeat. The first time she slept the whole day away, I made breakfast and coffee, but it got cold, and I wound up having to throw it out before she woke up. Online, it was more or less the same. She'd stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. talking to this guy, and she'd say she'd talk to me next. But she'd be so tired that she either signed off and went to bed or ended the call after just a few minutes to sleep. On our last visit, we weren't intimate, and whole weeks had gone by without us saying a word to each other. She became very upset when I implied that she was beginning to phase me out like she'd admitted to doing to other men. None of that is normal. She just picked up something to be mad about, and we broke up after that. After that last trip to see me, she was seeing the man who replaced me. Also, not normal. She eventually confessed that she was trying to get out of the relationship with her baby's daddy, and that she was using me. She'd cast a wide net and was going to move in with whoever had the most promise to get her out of her situation. I'd been in a car accident that left me with a permanent back injury, and she was hoping I'd get enough money to buy a new house and her a car. When that didn't work out and the award settlement was far below the fabulous wealth she was hoping I'd get, she moved on to another man, whom she also publicly cheated on. The plan was that she'd eventually ghost me, but this was someone I'd proposed to, someone I wanted to build a future with. Ultimately, she'd cheated on me with 5 other men. I wasted whole years of my life on her, in a terrible relationship, singing the blues over her. If your significant other is doing any of these things to you, just run. It's not worth staying, and I promise there are people right in front of you who will love you for who you are. There were people right in front of me who would have loved me for who I was, and my greatest regret is not taking them up on that when I had the chance. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.